or to be in pictures.
The following podcast contains spoilers for I, Tonya.
Oh my!
Nice!
Jeez.
Oh, nice.
Flash Monte all over the laptop.
Wow.
Now my laptop will come to life. Yes.
For listeners out there, that was our cans of yerba mate.
Delicious, organic Guayaki brand yerba mate, the official sponsor of the Talkies.
Official.
That's right, yeah.
Don't you forget it.
Yeah.
We honestly could not do what we do without the help of organic brand yerba mate from Guayaki. Today I'm drinking some beautiful Bluephoria.
I've never heard of that flavor before.
Well, it's made from the berries of the Bluephoric bush.
Oh, good.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I got that too.
It's good, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel very Bluephoric.
I feel golden.
Yeah.
I feel classic gold.
Ooh.
I feel sparkling classic gold.
Well, you're nothing
Wow.
if not classy, D.
Yeah, that's a good place to be.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. It's been a week
Just about, yes.
All right.
since we last got together to chat about the movies. Before we dig into I, Tonya, which we're dying to pull apart. We saw that just a few hours ago.
Yep.
Haven't spoken a word about it to each other yet. I literally have no idea who in this room loved or hated that movie. So it's exciting. Before we dig in, how you doing, Taylor?
Good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What's new in your life?
Yeah, Taylor, you look a little different.
Different?
Yeah.
Really?
You look more tired.
Oh, yes. Maybe
Pulling some late nights, haven't you?
I've been pulling some very late nights. So this is the thing. I can do crazy late nights, no problem, as long as I've got my stock of yerba mate. But about halfway through the week, I ran out of my personal stock, and that's when I had to start doing some really late night stuff. So it was just bad timing,
got
and
messed up.
it's
Nice.
it's affected pretty much every aspect of my life by not having yerba mate. It's affected my personal relationships with just about everybody I know. It's tarnished everything. But if I had this stuff, I'd still be
That's serious, man.
That's so sad.
It's
Yeah.
whatever.
We've said it here before that here at Carmenline Studios, we like to keep the intensity of the super successful moguls of the 1980s, but without the cocaine.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, maintaining that kind of intensity without cocaine is not possible without yerba mate.
Exactly.
Absolutely not.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
And how are you doing, D?
Why, I'm doing fantastic. I feel like we're building up to something here, but I don't know what.
I don't know either. Just getting the pleasantries out of the way before we
Oh, I see.
you know, it's not a bit. I'm just literally asking how you are.
see, we immediately go with, all right, what's the ulterior motive
What
of
is-
asking how we
What
are?
are you doing?
I missed a note. What is this?
I'm doing swell.
Yeah.
It was nice. My wife came with us to watch I, Tonya, and she really enjoyed the movie. And she made sure not to talk about it with me in the car because she wanted me to save my comments.
So you
for
don't know
her.
how she felt about it either.
I know she liked it. That's it.
All right.
And I had to have her explain a scene to me, which she did. And now I understand. So there you go. I'm quite slow when it comes to movies, actually. Believe it or not.
It's hard to believe.
Very hard.
So hard.
Well, let's begin, shall we? I, Tonya. Competitive ice skater Tonya Harding rises amongst the ranks at the U.S. Figure Skating Championships, but her future in the activity is thrown into doubt when her ex-husband intervenes.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, no.
And of course, if you lived through the 90s, you know exactly what that's referring to.
Unless you're a late 80s kid.
Right, so you don't remember this.
like,
Steve.
I don't.
Taylor
I have
was
no.
like a baby.
I had no idea.
No, when were you born?
98.
You weren't alive.
Yeah,
You weren't-
I
yeah,
had
you weren't
no
alive.
conception of
Yeah,
any
I
of
was-
this.
I
just
remember
very
this very clearly. And I actually want to dig into how that shaped my experience with the movie.
That would be really interesting.
It really, I think I saw a different movie than you guys did.
Yes.
Right.
Directed by Craig Gillespie. Are you familiar with Craig?
He did. Shoot, I can't remember the movie.
I see. He did a Disney baseball movie called $1 Million Arm.
I think I've seen that.
He did Finest Hours, which was it came out last year. It was like a shipwreck movie, a rescue at sea movie. Lars and the Real Girl.
That's
there
what
we
it
go.
was. That's what it was.
Yeah, no, that's a good film.
I don't know it. I'm not familiar.
See Lars and the Real Girl.
Yeah, you got to see that.
It's good. Okay, so there's our director. Written by Steven Rogers and starring Margot Robbie, Sebastian Stan, Allison Janney, and who was the fourth one that I really liked was Paul Hauser.
Who looked a lot like, what's his name?
The real guy.
Oh, did he?
Paul Hauser played Sean.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, the
guy.
buddy that sort of like acts like he's a anti-terrorist operative
The espionage dude.
Espionage guy.
Yeah.
But he looked exactly like the real guy.
Yeah.
Amy told me
Yeah.
that the after credits scene, which I missed, looked very much
Yeah,
like
they
him.
showed
It
an
was
actual
funny.
clip of his character saying the very same thing. So he really said that person said those things to a real TV
That's amazing.
interviewer. I mean,
Hilarious.
unbelievable.
That's
This
pretty
story
hilarious.
is just wild.
It's so great.
So if you're not familiar, this is all based around the infamous attack on Nancy Kerrigan during the '94 Olympics.
94.
I think it was.
And I was in kindergarten, first grade.
Not me.
Not you. No.
But that year and the years after, Tonya Harding became kind of like a punchline. She was a joke, you know. The media stylized her as like a psychopath who was violent and will beat up people who are in her way to success. It didn't matter who else was involved. It was Tonya Harding who beat up Nancy Kerrigan in the minds of everyone.
Well, it makes a great story.
And she was spoofed in Saturday Night Live skits. She was ridiculed by late night hosts.
Wow.
For a long time. And what I wanted to get into is like, well, first, this movie uncovers like the backstory of who this person was and where she came from, which completely changed everything for me. Like, holy cow, what an upbringing she had.
Yeah.
It's really sad.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. I was just thinking, with the baggage of knowing what happened in real life, I could see this movie maybe in a different light, where it's a movie that's trying to tell people that she's not as crazy as they thought.
That's what it was to me. She was exonerated by this.
That's interesting.
That's what I felt.
I'm not sure if I like it now.
Well, her mother was obviously abusive, crazy. Even at that scene where she throws a knife at her, sticks into her arm,
Yeah.
nuts. But that started this pattern of like her believing that people who love her will hurt her, and that it's okay.
Yeah,
that's sad.
Which is why she keeps coming back to this guy over and over and over again as he's repeatedly beating her, saying sorry, and then going back to him.
Yeah.
Always.
Right.
Even after being shot in the face.
Right.
You know?
Right.
She comes back.
And that literally happened.
Yeah. She comes back to the guy, over and over and over again. And what I wanted to get to was that, just before we started playing, I told Dee that this movie actually stung me in a way emotionally that I've never really experienced before. In this moment where she talked about all the crap that happened after the incident and what happened to her character and her life after that. And she looked straight at the camera and she said, and now all of you are my attackers as well. You too are first it was my mother, and then it was my husband, and now it's you guys.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And that, I actually felt a pang of remorse for every Tonya Harding joke I laughed at in the 1990s.
That's pretty crazy.
And went, oh crap, like that was heavy for me especially.
That's funny because I felt the same thing, obviously not as deep because I didn't have that connection, But yeah, when she turned to the audience and said that, like, this is a mechanic in a movie that you could make literally really corny because of, maybe you don't have that emotional connection with her. But yeah, I felt like I was like, oh geez, like that's just straight out calling people out.
Yeah, it kind of made it more. It's a very. I know the story is all based on very true stuff, but it just solidified for me the realism of it.
Yeah,
because that was the first time I ever heard any of that story.
Right.
So I went in like blind,
right,
not knowing what was going to happen.
On the way to the theater, I was like, "So do you know anything about Tonya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan?" And he goes, "No," and I'm like, "I'm not going to even tell you. Let's just see. This would be really interesting."
I have so many things to talk about, but can I start up?
Please.
Yeah.
So the one thing I wanted to talk about real quick was wow. You know what? I just realized we could have a supercut of me saying. So I just want to talk about it real quick.
We could.
Just real quick.
Yes. It's our favorite segue.
Had someone told me, you should go see I, Tonya. Oh yeah, it's an ice skating movie.
Ice skating?
Ice skating!
Keep going.
There's movies out there that are army movies, that are insert subject here movies that will be about that situation. For example, what was that? Females, not females versus. There was a tennis match.
Oh,
movie.
Battle of the Sexes.
Battle of the Sexes.
Was that a tennis movie?
Yes,
right.
That was a tennis movie.
Right.
So this was a Tonya movie.
Yeah, not figure skating.
If anyone defined this as a skating movie, they're fools.
It's a biopic.
Exactly. So that's what I really, really enjoyed about this is that they focused just on the biopic side. And actually had
there were no like geek out sports moments where you're like
right. And I
just didn't happen.
I was waiting for those slow motion shots where they had the spinning stuff. I think that came close, but
they always took it another way.
Oh, it was so good, so good in that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we have a lot to talk about. The performances were so great, but. Let me just say the camera work was so cool.
Yeah, very good.
It was really insane.
They did lots of weird things that you're like, man, they gave someone some serious creative liberty for a movie that is really I mean, this could have made in a very standard indie film style.
Right. See, that's what I loved about it.
But they didn't. They made it very stylized and
it was so good like that.
Very
There's
dynamic.
this sequence at the very end of the movie where they wanted to portray the character's name, Jeff, her ex-husband, as being lonely after she has left him. And so they show him pacing alone in the kitchen, and the camera, seemingly all in one shot, pulls out of the kitchen to where now you see him sitting on the floor in the next room. Pulls out of that room, still seemingly in one shot, through the next room where you see him doing something else, and then finally pulls out of the door and goes zooming down the street.
Yeah,
all backwards,
in a way
all
that
in one
seems
shot.
Completely impossible.
Yeah.
And
it was cool how long they held on the.
It was a long.
Yeah, they
shot.
just kept pulling back on the street for a good 15 seconds.
A lot of people do, fake simultaneous, fake shots that. They're made to look like it's one long shot that's done a bunch of crazy things, and I can usually see where the fake stuff is so together to make
Yeah.
But that looked really good.
Most of it looked really good.
Yeah.
I saw one little thing, but it was great.
Yeah.
The camera work was so crazy in this film. I could easily see. So like I was thinking while they're filming her on the ice skating rink, when she comes out into the first time, we see her out there in the first time in the rink. The camera follows her backwards, so the operator's going this way.
Yeah.
And she's skating out there just like anybody else would regularly in a rink like that, but they go so fast. And for the operator to go backwards that fast
That's what I kept
on
thinking.
ice.
I'm like, how are they moving
Exactly.
this camera? Is it suspended from above? Some kind
Right.
of crazy crane?
Well, and they had like handheld sequences on the ice, like where someone is following her and they're like doing this at the same time.
Yeah, but it seemed way too stable for someone who was on ice skates, right?
Right. So it was too stable for that, but too shaky for perfect camel movies.
Maybe they have like a track.
Yeah, they might have been on some
something.
kind of rig.
Maybe they have like a big, like a catwalk over the ice or something.
Maybe.
He was on the
I mean, they did
Well, they got
Zambo,
Zambino. How
Zambino.
much of that was Margot Robbie ice skating? How much was digital body? How much was lookalike? You know.
I saw some of the digital stuff. Which I didn't care too much about. I thought it looked great.
Yeah. How about the super slow motion of her triple axel?
I thought that looked great.
That was awesome.
That looked really good.
That looked really
And
good.
it obviously wasn't real because you can't shoot that. Like, that's impossible.
Right.
But it looked really good.
There was one moment when she does this spin where she's spinning like super fast.
Yeah.
And you could see her face like too perfectly. Like it was timed like a frame on a profile angle, frame straight on, a frame on profile, and it's like lit a little differently, and it just kind of looked kind of funny. Not super big, but a little detail.
They did that, I think, also with the young Margot Robbie also.
Oh, yeah.
When she was spinning, she did a really fast spin, and it was like very sharp for a second, and you're like, that's not real.
That wouldn't happen.
Right.
There'd be so much motion blur right there.
Right, but honestly, I mean, it came to almost the point of stylization. Like, it looked like it was supposed to be that way, and I'm sure they didn't actually intend it to be stylized like that, but I thought it worked. I thought it worked.
Yeah, it didn't take me out of the movie or anything.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the performances, because there are two that are just flat out two of the best of the year, like no doubt.
Yeah.
First being Margot Robbie.
Yeah.
Holy cow, did
very
she
good.
bring it
This is
for this.
the best role I've seen Margot Robbie in.
Definitely.
I don't know.
Best performance I've ever seen her give.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a ton of her movies.
Right, I was going to say I haven't seen a ton, but...
Now, what she did so well is playing the character at different ages in a way that it was really believable and genuine to me. I mean, as she's reminiscing from what's supposed to be like the present, you know, the older Tonya Harding looking back and telling the story, the way she sits, the way she holds herself up, you can tell life has beat her up by this point. She's very jaded about everything.
Yeah.
Whereas you go all the way back to when she's supposedly 15 years old.
Right.
And she has a very different way of carrying herself, a very different outlook on life.
Right.
And she really evolved the character through the years as if she lived those years.
Yeah.
In a way that was very believable.
It was a little weird for a second when she had braces, and I was like, are they trying to do like a teenager thing right now?
I guess she was supposed to be 15.
That is what they were doing.
Yeah.
And
That
at
took me out a
first,
little bit.
at first I wasn't into that. I was like, no, that's so weird.
I wonder,
But her performance
was so
sold
good.
it.
You didn't mind by the end.
Yeah.
I mean, the Jeff didn't look 15 either.
No,
He looks
he was
30.
actually worse. Yeah, that was kind of hard to buy into.
I got a question about Jeff. Was the movie trying to... Because that part where Jeff's interview... where he's like a completely different character.
Yeah.
He seems totally different.
Yeah.
He's gotten therapy or something.
Yeah. And so he remembers back, and I love how this movie misremembers certain things. And I think it's really cool. When he remembers back and he says, "I never did that," or "I never hit her," or anything like that. Was he supposed to be lying, or was she supposed to be lying? And or is it supposed to admit?
I think the audience is supposed to be seeing exactly what the filmmakers got when they went and got these stories told.
Right.
Interesting.
Right.
Okay.
So
it's all taken from
here's what happened
interviews.
from Jeff's point of view, and here's what happened from Tanya's point of view.
Right.
Do with it as you wish.
Although I think they set you up to side with Tonya.
Absolutely.
You know, that's what
no doubt.
they were going for. I thought.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but Margot Robbie.
I do like the way they portrayed Jeff's character, because he actually comes across as a very soft and sensitive, sort of emotional person who then has this extremely violent streak. And I think many movies have a tendency to cast the abusive man in a relationship very one-dimensionally. Like they're gruff.
Right.
They're usually just kind of pissed all the time.
Yeah.
You know, and if they're not violent, they're depressed. You know, so they're drinking or something.
Right.
It's very tropey.
Right.
But when the first time he hit Tonya Harding, I felt like it came freak out of nowhere.
Yeah, you're like, whoa.
What?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's probably more true to life.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've met a couple of people who I would classify as borderline psychotic, and most of the time and most of the time you're with them, you would just say, "Oh, this guy's great. He's totally normal." You know. And,
Yeah.
And I've also had experiences where women who have been abused have told me that when they do speak up and say, you know, so and so hit me, people don't believe him. They go, no, he's a great guy.
Right.
Right.
I don't know if he comes off as, because you're right, his character that he is most of the time doesn't really match the violent behavior that he has.
No.
But there's an HBO show that does this exact thing with a guy who's a husband who beats his wife but is super, super nice every other time. But he's like perfect nice, and he's like this guy that you could never see doing anything wrong. And he wasn't flawed. He didn't seem like a flawed guy. And then it's obvious after you see him hit his wife that, oh yeah, of course there's this other side to him. But Jeff didn't seem like he had that to him. It looked like he was already a complex round character.
Yeah.
By himself, and then they stuck on the violence as an afterthought.
He was. I mean,
is what it seemed like.
You certainly didn't get the idea he was squeaky clean.
Yeah.
I mean, he seemed like a flawed human being.
Right.
But he didn't seem like, I'm going to take your head and smash it against the wall.
Right.
You know?
Well, so that's what's weird about it. Is that a character that's written to have those kinds of things, or is it because they put it in there because what the interview said?
I would venture to say that that's probably more true to reality.
You think so?
Yeah, I do think so.
Because
you're right. People don't typically write characters that way.
That's exactly it.
And I'm going to suggest it's because this is reality, not written characters. Stories don't reflect reality. Stories reflect the things inside of us that need to be expressed, the lessons we want to learn or teach. You know. So when you get that in a movie, I find it quite refreshing.
I can see that.
Yeah, this whole movie kind of made me feel really, really bad for Tonya, because like it seems like she just got really unlucky and unfair shake at her career
over and over again.
Yeah, where it was like all the problems that she faces are not necessarily directly her fault, but it's just because of the people who are around her doing crazy stuff that happened to involve her. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really sad. Like if she just wasn't around her ex-husband around that time, then it just none of it would have happened. She would have had a successful skating career. Not that she didn't, but she would have gotten a medal or something.
Well, you have to wonder if it wasn't him, if she would not have had someone else in her life to sabotage her, because it kind of looked like there's a pattern there no matter what. So, I mean,
like her mom.
Simultaneously, you have these terrible people around her doing terrible things and sabotaging her. You also have her returning to those terrible people over and over again.
Right. So yeah.
Mostly because she wants love.
Yeah, and
she feels like she's unloved.
A sad vision of a sad warped mindset, I'd say. That would be where that's a conditioning thing of her upbringing.
Yeah, I would say that the characters in here this is probably the definition of complex characters, when you're writing something in a film. And I think you're right how it's mostly based on reality, so it's different than rote characters, than ones that are created from fiction. But I feel like when we talk about things like we felt sorry for her, or she was really sad in this moment and made me feel bad about myself, or something like that, those character flaws or character, I guess, engagement times in other movies, I feel like they feel different in this one. Mm-hmm. And I feel like they feel real. And I don't know what it is, but this movie has a visceral sense about their characters.
I think that's largely because they based the dialogue, right? So much of the dialogue was given in the form of a narration.
Yeah.
and that narration was taken directly from real interviews.
Well, there you go.
So it was like you had no writer in a room going like, "Oh, how to make believable dialogue."
Right. You just
He
take the
used
transcript.
real dialogue.
See, now, this is interesting because so much of this movie remind me of what was the movie? Martin Scorsese.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
A little bit. Margot Robbie's in Wolf of Wall Street.
This movie so much reminded me of it, not just because of the narration and changing and stuff like that, but because they are both based on real stories, and they have real events that are then displayed in movie form.
You see, I think I wasn't a huge fan of all the narration. I think it was a little heavy. Like, I would have liked to see more of just the film itself. I didn't like constantly cutting back
You wanted
to
more narrative content and less sort of fake
spoken
documentary.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. I didn't like that it was like fake documentary footage that they were cutting
Sort of
to.
mixed in.
Yeah, that didn't just, I don't know, that didn't really sit
I
well
liked
with
it.
me.
I liked it too.
I could dig it. Are we back?
We're back.
We're back.
What were you
Okay.
talking about?
I was just talking about breaking the fourth wall.
Oh.
So, for those not familiar with the phrase, there are 3 walls that surround the stage. The fourth wall is the one between the stage and the audience. When you decide to turn and engage your audience in the movie somehow, you've now broken the fourth wall. It is usually used as in film. It's usually used for comedy, and in this one, it was used for exposition in a way that actually I felt worked in the end. At the beginning, I was kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this. We're going to keep having people
That's how I felt.
turn and wink at the camera all the time. This really happened.
Yeah.
You know? But actually, I felt like they weighed out, sort of balanced it so that
Yeah.
it wasn't like too much, and it's just sort of stayed fresh and funny usually.
You know what's funny is it reminds me of like the writer who's like doing their first draft and they have a lot of that in there. Then the editor goes and then takes some of this out.
Yeah. Maybe. But it worked. I thought it was very, very cool, actually.
Yeah, I thought it was nice.
I liked some of it. It didn't all land for me. I think it was a little bit too much for me. Too much wink, wink, nod, nod talking. Like, they did this one clever thing that was clever the first time where they have a voiceover dialogue explaining something, and then you see the character who's doing the voiceover, and then the character looks over, and then the voiceover becomes
their dialogue.
in-scene dialogue, yeah. And I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. But they did it like 2 more times, and I was like, okay, I get it. I mean, I
I
don't
get
know.
it. You're clever. Huh?
Yeah, it's just a little too much for me.
What interested me about the part, and I just forgot. So anyway, Kenny, you were gonna say something.
Well, back to fourth wall breaking.
Yes.
I was just going to sort of throw this out here as a conversation topic. What do you think makes that work when it works, and when is it appropriate to do when you're
That's
telling
interesting.
stories with film or video?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's certainly a gimmick. You know, it's certainly something that writers put into their scripts because it's fun to do, or because it's
Sure.
interesting, because it
Made-
livens up something.
Made very popular by like the Monty Pythons of the world.
Right. So yeah, you're right that I think it's easiest to do for comedy because it's unexpected. Harder to do for drama, and there's some dramas that do break it, that do really well at it, but only keep it very small.
Yeah.
And I think the interview fashion of this whole thing being kind of like an almost documentary dramatization kind of works in that sense, where they can break the fourth wall, and it because it becomes silly.
Yeah. That's why it works more often than not,
Yeah.
at least for me. Some of it still didn't work for me, but
Yeah.
more, at least made it feel like a little bit more than just like a cliche, because it is kind of a cliche for me when I see when the camera, or when the actor looks over and starts speaking to the camera, it gets too easy to do or whatever.
But what does that do for the filmmaker? I mean, if it's too easy to do, why choose to do it?
Because it's surface level, creative and interesting and easy to do.
So it's something that they want to liven up their stuff, so they just put it in there. Is what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Yeah. I think,
We can speak from experience because this is what WTF M. Night Shyamalan is.
yeah.
Loaded with it.
Yeah, constantly.
Right? You
Yeah.
know? and it's like, it's easy fodder for laughs and gags, especially.
Right, for comedy.
Yeah.
I think it could be done correctly, more subtly. Like, I'd use Fight Club as an example.
Oh, yeah.
When the fourth wall is broken by Tyler Durden, like, he's in a scene and he just looks straight at the camera, and then the celluloid of the film starts shaking around and he's just staring directly into the camera, and then you get the impression that, like, he's literally making the camera shake just from his presence, and you get the instability of these two personalities as like one.
Yeah.
I think that's a better use of it, more subtle and more purposeful, in my opinion.
Course,
purposeful.
I don't know how to differentiate that kind of breaking the fourth wall where you talk to the audience, and breaking the fourth wall where, like, your film set becomes a part of the movie. You know, where, like, your camera has pulled back and reveals all the other cameras and lights in the movie, which is done as well as, again, always in comedies.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Is that like a fifth wall?
We talked about this actually one time. During
Yeah,
Confirmed.
we made some crazy analogy.
We like to think that
Made a multi-wall system?
like
Yeah.
fourth wall breaking in video games can't really exist because you're already in it. Therefore, it's a fifth wall. Yeah. Anyway.
All right. So, getting back to I, Tonya. So we spoke about Margot Robbie and her performance, which was just dialed in and awesome. And for it, she was nominated for the Best Actress Oscar, which
Yeah.
I think
Well
is
deserved.
well-deserved.
Yep.
And,
Wait, who was?
Margot Robbie.
Oh, good.
Yeah, she was nominated for Best Actress for this role. Another Oscar nomination went to Allison Janney, who played her mother, who I think is probably the most memorable character of this film.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
She is the mother from hell.
Yes,
Yeah.
she is.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, you know what's great about this too is, again, I feel like it's different because I've seen that character before and I've never liked it, and here it's amazing. It's weird.
Yeah, I've seen a few other characters that were very similar. Did either of you watch the TV show Glee?
Yeah.
So, like, she reminded me of the cheerleading coach
Yeah.
in Glee. That same kind of, like, I don't take any crap and I say what's on my mind, get out of my way,
Right.
or be flattened kind of
Right.
personality. Although this character was far more crass and vulgar
Right.
and violent and unstable. And I guess what was really interesting is that Tonya Harding, you had this character who keeps running towards dangerous people and situations because she's desperate for love. And you have a mother who clearly has no idea how to give love.
Clearly, right.
That's like where it all comes from.
Yeah.
Like, she even says that my expression to love is treating you like crap so that you will become a champion.
Right, she even says
She
that.
full on says that. Yes, I treat you like crap on purpose
Yeah.
because you need it to become a champion.
I think that's what makes the difference, is because she absolutely sticks to her philosophy.
Yeah.
No matter
when
what.
she pays off a guy at the Olympic trials, she pays a guy to go and start shouting "You suck, you're trash"
Right.
in her face. Your mother paid that guy to do that.
A sound mixing note I wanted to put on that is that guy who's like yelling, usually when you have the inspirational talk in any kind of movie to get yourself away from that outside perspective, you're talking with someone and then all the mixing goes down everywhere else and it's just this dialogue. In this one, you hear that guy's comments throughout the whole conversation.
Yeah, kept him his level up.
Yeah.
To put you in Tanya's shoes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You couldn't
Exactly.
connect with what the coach was saying.
Right. It was
Yeah.
like hard. It was
Can't
hard to listen
escape.
to her.
Yeah, you're like, man, I hate that guy too. And then you see her mom give him like $20.
Right.
You're like, oh man.
The part at the end where Allison Janney's character goes in and
Oh, that was so devastating.
oh yeah, that was bad.
So she visits Tonya at the end while she's besieged by press and media. It's after the event, there's all the turmoil, and you see like they're going to have a very tender moment. She's come to her daughter's aid at last, and she's finally cracked her veneer and going to show some sensitivity.
Right. And it did it just enough to where it was like 98% believable, where you wanted to be like, okay,
Yeah.
this is happening, right?
Yeah.
But then it cracked it at the very end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like if she laid it on any thicker, you would have suspected something was up.
Right.
But you could tell she really struggled to say, "I'm proud of you."
Right.
And as soon as she said it, she's like, "Okay, I better get out of here." And so you're like, "Okay, yeah, that makes sense." And then you realize she's pushing a
She
tape
pushed
recorder
something.
button in her pocket, and she says, "So, did you know about the attack?" And
Man.
you're like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah, that was...
She
that's-
is an absolute
Yeah.
irredeemable monster.
Yeah. It really.
in the most human way.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
by the way, she had the most vagrant breaking of the fourth wall.
Oh, where she
Was when she looked at
acknowledged
the-
the film?
The story.
Where she hadn't been on screen for like 15 minutes,
Yeah.
and she just speaks right to the camera and says, what happened to my part in this story?"
Yeah.
My storyline's just gone to shit.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what she said.
disappearing.
What happened to my part? So that was like super self-aware.
Right. I don't know if this is a nod to the editor or to the director, but but Allison Janney's character, first of all, super strong, and I feel like she could have easily stole the movie from Margot Robbie.
It was
Had she-
close at times.
Right, had she been in it longer. And I think that whole part in the middle where she's out is to build more of Margot's character,
Yeah,
Tonya.
you needed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you needed it.
Because he really did.
Yeah.
Because easily could have stolen the stage.
She was so good.
Yeah.
She was so good. And so she got nominated as well for Best Supporting Actress at the Academy Awards. If you look at her picture on IMDb, she looks nothing like the character she plays. She's a very attractive woman, and she plays a very frumpy looking woman in this movie.
Her haircut, man.
Her
Yeah.
haircut's amazing. She's never stopped smoking. She has these giant, scary, bug-eye glasses.
Those glasses.
And in the
are great.
end, after the post-credits, they also had a clip of Tonya Harding's real mom.
Oh, nice.
And she looked exactly the same. She had a bird on her shoulder.
Yep. Same attitude.
And she said the very same words about how I kept pushing her down and tearing her down because that's what made her good. She says that. And the bird bites her ear. She goes, "Stop it."
That's awesome. That's
Like,
awesome.
they perfectly captured these characters. They did a very good job.
Mm-hmm.
Hats off to this type of filmmaking, man.
Yeah.
Like, really.
I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like it.
Mm.
I'd like to see some behind-the-scenes stuff, but to verify this, but it very much looked like this was... It's like they made a documentary, and then they used all of the content for that documentary as research for making a narrative film.
Right. And it worked so well.
You could tell they knew all these characters.
Everything. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said before, this is the definition of complex characters. These characters are just... There's so much more round about them. Like when people just say, round out your characters, make sure they're three-dimensional, make sure they're real people. Because these are based on actual real people. And they use that research well for a filmmaker who's good at what he does. You get all that all in one thing, and it's so good.
I actually can't remember a film in recent history that made me this sad. I mean,
Yeah.
her story is so sad. And her connection with her ex-husband, Jeff. And just to think how, she kept going back to this guy. He'd keep abusing her. He'd always find a way to hurt her. Until finally, she breaks it off for good. And he finds one last way to hurt her. And it's by completely destroying her career.
Right.
And by the way, it's the one thing that he doesn't shy away from or deny, but admits
Yep.
at the end of the movie. He
Yeah.
looks straight at the camera and says, "I ruined her career.
Yeah.
I completely ruined her career."
Yeah. That was pretty poignant.
Yeah.
Yeah. That line.
There's one, I think, weirdness that I don't like about his character in the film. And it's funny because I've had nothing but positive to say about this, but the last part where he finds out that the letters weren't done, but instead is this whole thing with the leg, stuff. It was obviously out of his control. He was obviously very mad about it. And then when he goes to Tonya, he doesn't ever explain himself ever. He doesn't say, no, it was, he doesn't explain the whole situation, that Sean was the one who did this, and and it was out of his control, and he meant something else. And I feel like from his character, that's something that he should have done. That he would have went to her because he's very close to her and says everything that just happened to him, but he doesn't.
Right, but you're also expressing what a character would do in light of what the real person actually did.
Maybe. I see it differently.
Characters don't always behave as people.
I see it differently, though.
Do we know for fact that this... What's his name? Sorry, I forget. Jeff, in real life, didn't explain it all to her?
I don't know.
Sorry, say that one more time.
Because I assume that we don't know if Jeff in real life kept a lot of the explanation stuff away from her or not.
Actually, it did seem like Jeff was maintaining that Tonya was in on everything. Right? He was maintaining that, but what we saw on the screen was Tanya's account of what happened. Jeff maintained that's not what happened.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
So
so this does get into
that up. Boom.
Well, there's different inferences I think that you can make about this kind of stuff, and that's one thing. For me, it felt like it was a plot point that the writer didn't know how to connect, and so they just kind of just made the actions happen.
And I think that's one of the great challenges of trying to be true to a real story, a historical thing that happened that's well documented. They're not always going to nicely plug in to a narrative story structure.
No, you're right. But again,
people, sadly, don't always follow the hero's journey.
They don't.
But
that's not what I mean.
Nor do the bringers of catastrophe follow a villain arc.
Right. No, I understand that arcs don't play out perfectly in real life.
Yeah.
So I would agree that real life does not follow the hero's journey.
Yeah, arcs.
Arcs don't play out all the time. But motivation and organic growth always does, and that's just because in human nature, things that we do are based on other things that we think or other things that we've felt or something like that. So me right now, for example, getting up and just throwing the cameras everywhere wouldn't make sense. But some movies, do that. They have a character just do something. In the same sense, you can have a character not do something, even though it seems like all their motivations are leading up to that point. And I felt like that's what this happened. It's like when there's an old teaching method about film where someone says, "Why don't they just call the cops?" Right? Mm-hmm. And it's like the reason why you want to play for that rule is because it makes the whole thing more realistic, and it's because it creates organic growth. Because they could just call the cops, if there's someone who's in trouble or something like that, but you can't because the plot doesn't call for it, right? So the plot, I felt like at this point, called for Jeff to not tell Tonya anything, because if he had, then the lawsuit may not have happened.
And I'm maintaining that motivation for behavior is so diverse and unpredictable that behavior is completely unpredictable. For example, you're like, why didn't anyone call the cops scenario, right? You have a bank robbery, let's say, and there's no good Samaritan who decides to do the obvious thing and pick up your phone and call the police. Well, why didn't this person call the police? Well, they were petrified with fear.
But that's a reason, though.
It's a reason.
Yeah.
Why didn't this guy call the police? He may have a completely different reason.
He might, but
this other guy might actually be pulling a knife from his pocket to go and try to intervene.
Right.
Right? So I think what you're suggesting is impossible. To infer what someone's behavior would or would not be in a given situation.
Right. Well, I'm not saying that's the logical outcome. I'm not saying that anyone in his position would do this, but I am saying that it's very awkward that he didn't, and that stood out for the movie. To me, it looked like it was unnatural for that to happen. And maybe, who knows? Maybe these events did play out exactly that way.
Right.
But it was weird.
And to me, I would say that. It's awkward, but fits with a person whose behavior up to that point has been nothing but erratic. I mean,
Yeah.
he's also the guy who goes from playing like kissy face games to just slamming her head onto the wall.
Right. I mean, yeah, and you're completely right when it comes to that. And again, I think this comes to inference, because you could say anything you wanted about that kind of thing because they leave it open. Anything that they leave open, you can infer any kind of meaning, and I feel like you could do that with just about anything. So there's no real argument here that we can really bring up that will make any sense to the film itself, unless we talk to the writer.
There's an argument.
Oh no.
Oh, there's an argument.
Oh no.
Well, there's no truth here, though. In what we're talking about, there's
That
no
was
truth.
the theme from the movie.
Right. Well, no, that's it.
There is no truth. That was one of the main themes of the film, actually. That actually is a lot deeper now that I think about how we kept bouncing between perspectives
Yeah.
and having seemingly contradicting storytelling happening at the same time.
That's true.
I think it'd be easy to walk away from this movie and say that the purpose of it, or the moral, of the story, was to vindicate Tonya Harding, right? To help her, to help people just understand this person, that she's a more complex. And I think that is a symptom of what we went through,
Yeah.
right? I think that is a result, but I think that really what it was trying to show is that I can't tell you the truth.
Right.
There's that's way too complex of a question.
American Crime Story, the O.J. Simpson
Yeah.
movie, did the same exact thing.
It did it really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see that?
No, I didn't.
Cuba Gooding Jr.
I heard it was really
Actually-
good.
Really good.
Yeah.
Actually does good.
Yeah.
And I had sort of written him off. I hadn't seen him do anything I've liked in a really long time. And he nailed it in that. Yeah.
I can say that this is one movie that I like. I don't know if it's just me getting older or us watching more movies, but like in other movies where I've been emotionally invested and I see couples fighting or I see just family members fighting, I'm just like, fighting, But in this movie, I was like stressed when it happened. Then it was just the mom and daughter.
This was not just normal family disputes.
Right. Well,
Mother threw a knife at daughter.
But before that, even you could feel the tension rising.
Yeah.
You could feel that knife part like came to fruition. Like you could understand that would happen in that
Right.
situation.
It was just a matter of time, essentially.
Yeah, and it felt just so emotionally visceral, and I was just like, ugh, like stressed out every time that happened.
Yeah.
Well, these really weren't people who loved each other having a fight over something they disagree on,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I think these were people who genuinely wanted to love each other but couldn't or didn't know how.
right. And I think you're right because it's based on a real situation,
Yeah.
as opposed to someone who's writing that kind of situation. Like Stranger Things, for example, probably couldn't do this emotional, visceral stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a movie for the feels.
Yeah.
You will really, it definitely makes you feel things.
It's real, man. It's
Yeah.
very real.
And yet they maintained a comedy level pacing and feel. Overall, I'd say this film falls almost stronger in the comedy category than the drama.
Mm.
And yet it's definitely a sad story and a very emotional one.
Yeah.
You've been quiet over there, Taylor.
I don't have that much to say about this movie. Like I didn't like it that much. Like I thought it was good, but I thought I
I
don't
liked
know.
it better than Phantom Thread.
Really?
Oh yeah.
I did too.
Yeah.
Not even close for me. Like
Not even
whole
close.
separate leagues, in my opinion.
Oh, that makes me sad.
You're just a Paul Thomas Anderson fanboy.
That's it.
Sad, really.
Sad, really.
A little bit.
LOL.
Shallow.
Dot.
It was good though. Like the camera work is amazing. The editing is fantastic. The performances, Margot Robbie and the mom are fantastic.
Allison Janney.
Yes, I just wasn't too big on the story delivery all the time. And honestly, the whole story in general, outside of the themes of Margot, pretty much like it would be more interesting as a pure character study of Margot Robbie and her mom rather than the plot stuff.
The
like,
Nancy Kerrigan storyline.
Yeah, like I wasn't interested in that.
Just the whole reason why this is even a movie.
Exactly, yeah. That's stuff
interesting.
I wasn't interested in almost at all.
I would say the same thing. I
think
thought that was the weakest
that's
part.
the point.
Yeah.
I think that's the point. Everyone, I mean, obviously,
Right, 'cause that was the
exception of
sensational
you guys,
part.
But everyone knows that part.
Right.
And I think I have to imagine that the people who made this film said there's so much more to this than most people know.
Yeah.
And that's what they wanted to show, and they did.
Yeah.
They did, because like I said earlier, if you happen to have been a 12-year-old at the time of this, as I was, you went around thinking that Tonya Harding herself bashed Nancy Kerrigan's knee
I like how they had that scene in
and
there.
still managed to go ice skate, and and then had the audacity after she screwed up her routine, going over and claiming her laces were broken, right? Like, that was what the people were eating up and believing, was that, like, she's just a psycho and privileged, and, like, she's had a psycho upbringing. She's certainly not privileged.
Yeah.
And she probably had to work harder to get to where she was than anyone else on that ice.
I think you're right about the character study. I think would be more interesting.
But see, and then that's like, I guess it's hard to even fault. You can't fault it, because it is based on a very true story, and it's very it sticks closely to what happened, as close as it can be, I'd imagine. And so the problem with me is I don't know that story at all, and I feel like the way it was delivered didn't really make it that interesting of a thing. Like the O.J. Simpson trial, I don't know if it's fair to compare it to that, but like the O.J. Simpson trial is a much more, I think, it lends itself to film a lot better than this story does in terms of a plot perspective, like purely plot, not necessarily character stuff.
Maybe.
I don't agree.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would totally agree, but well, because I'm in your shoes also, I had no idea what the story was at all. Like, I never even heard of Tonya.
So then that's weird that we got different things out of it.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Well, it's kind of funny that you have this connection to the O.J. Simpson case and feel like you know it better, right? And so I think that's why you feel that way, is because you are familiar with that phenomenon.
Well, I feel like I know it better too, the OJ case.
It happened the same year.
That's funny,
Right.
because
I saw that there's a little moment where they show the OJ case start.
O.J. Simpson is what saved Tonya Harding from the never-ending onslaught of media torment.
Because then it was the next thing to eat
Yeah,
up.
her
Right.
story was gone.
Because they show the press
that was
leave
like one of the best things that could have happened to
Right.
to Tonya Harding.
right when it happens. They leave.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
So yeah, it's funny that we're talking about those two movies and they happen right at the same time.
I'm completely with Taylor. Like, that OJ case was super, super heavy in my childhood. I don't know why, but it was.
Yeah. Well, we have spent another perfectly good hour talking about a movie
Okay.
on the Talkies. I, Tonya, I give it full marks. I thoroughly enjoyed myself at this movie. I never really felt disappointed at all. I felt like I had laughs at all the right spots. There were points where I was moved to some pretty heavy emotions, which is a tall order for me, being this icy heart of stone individual that I am. I was very moved by it, and it's a really good reminder not to rush to judgment on people based on what you hear, especially in the media. You know?
Definitely.
Yeah. I would definitely say that it was a movie that I never thought I would like, and it was amazing. It was really good. It reminded me a lot, for some reason, again, of Wolf of Wall Street and that video game comic book movie that what's his name did, for some reason.
Which one?
Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
Oh, right, yeah.
That had a lot of self-referential stuff and camera winking.
Yeah, camera winking, like playing with perspective, I guess. And I really enjoy that in films.
Yeah, that's a cool movie, Scott Pilgrim.
It's a fun movie. That's like one of my favorite movies.
I liked it quite a bit. I enjoyed watching the film. I wasn't super blown away or really impressed with the story or plot that much. The performances, the main two performances, the Margot Robbie one and her mother, were both excellent. It was good. It was good. It didn't,
This is the first movie I think each of us had very unique, like even though Kenny and I very much loved it, we loved it in completely different ways.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I never had a movie made me feel guilty.
Yeah.
And I don't resent it for that. There are actually plenty of movies that I've seen who tried to make you feel guilty, especially documentaries about like vegan eating or climate change.
Right.
Which I hate as a tactic. It's not a good way to try to make people change.
Yeah.
But this one, I know I laughed at Tonya Harding. I know I did.
That's gotta feel weird.
This movie made me feel bad for doing that. It really
Man.
did.
That's crazy.
I got that same exact feeling from that scene in The Disaster Artist at the end. When they just show the audience laughing.
Me too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I felt uncomfortable when the audience was laughing at Tommy Wiseau's movie, and he's just like crying.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're like, I did that too.
Yeah. Because I also saw myself in Tommy and realizing I could be that guy.
Right.
Yeah.
So maybe those two movies, I, Tonya and Disaster Artist can be a good
Interesting double feature.
It's just a good reminder to be good human beings. Be nice to people.
Just don't judge
Give people the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, that's it.
And especially don't ridicule those who are trying to do something probably better than you are.
Definitely.
Right.
Right?
Who have aspirations.
We tear down someone who spent $15 million of their movie, of their own money to make a movie.
Right.
Did you make a movie?
Right.
You didn't make a movie.
Right.
Right? Or tear apart this Olympic level figure skater.
Right. Who's done nothing
How
but
many
figure
Olympic
skate.
games have you made it into? Or M. Night Shyamalan for that matter.
See, I want that kind of delivery of perspective shifting. I want to be able to do that with my films, my creative endeavors. Is to get someone, and it feels like you have to have like a backstory of some sort, something that people already have grown to know, and then deliver this opposite arc to them. I feel like Disney did it in what was that movie with Sleeping Beauty's mother?
I didn't see that one. Maleficent.
They did it with that too. That was interesting. It's a Disney, so it's not great, but
right. But no, if you can capture a piece of the public's emotional baggage that they already have and use that as part of your story.
Yeah.
Like if part one of your story has already happened in people's real lives, and then you take it from there, I think you're really set up for strong emotion.
I think that's great. That's a great takeaway from this.
Yeah. Act one actually happened in your life.
Right.
Right,
exactly.
Tonya Harding, Nancy
Exactly.
Kerrigan, or a screening of The Room.
Right.
Act one of the movie happened in your real life, and then we write Act 2 and 3.
I can't wait for
That's a good idea.
I can't wait for another one of these to come out. I want to analyze that further. That's really cool.
Very cool.
That is cool.
Well, thank you once again for listening to the Talkies or watching the Talkies, everyone. Please remember to subscribe on iTunes if you are watching. Subscribe, like, rate, review on iTunes. Subscribe on YouTube, wherever we're at. We need to spread the word, and we want to find more followers and listeners.
Yes,
so
please.
If you can help us do that, that'd be great. We're also looking for feedback. Feel free to write any questions or comments regarding this movie or the next movie we'll be talking about, and we will use your feedback on the show here. And if you're hungry for more content, we have 2 more podcasts.
Why, we have WTF M. Night Shyamalan.
Whoa.
Which is a transcendental experience, a mind-bending trip through storytelling, the film industry, and really the ups and downs of the creative process, all told in an extremely abstract, weird, funny, and adventurous way. Part science fiction, part Monty Python, part NPR, Fresh Air.
A little bit of fantasy.
A little bit of fantasy. And if you hate or love M. Night Shyamalan, you'll love this.
You'll feel right at home.
Yes, it actually hits all the right buttons for both the haters and the lovers.
Yeah.
So check it out. And then we have Confirmed, a podcast about video games, hosted by these two guys, Taylor and D. I'm not a gamer. These guys are. So you don't want me in that conversation.
That's an interesting show.
Yeah, it's we've just revamped pretty much the entire idea behind the show, and so we're working on a new episode that'll be like totally different from everything that's come before.
It's gonna be big.
Yeah, it'll be cool.
It's gonna be big.
It'll be really cool.
Nice. And we have a new show.
Holy moly.
As yet untitled.
Yes.
That will be a weekly show on YouTube that will basically follow what we do here in the studio all week. So we simultaneously have many creative endeavors going on between our podcasts and shows, our work that we do for paying clients that helps us keep the lights on in the studio, and also our continual grind towards making the movies that we're trying to make.
Right.
And in between, there's all kinds of hilarious shenanigans that tends to happen here in the studio. And it makes we realized we were missing out on some entertainment gold. We needed to start filming this stuff and get it out there. So keep your eye out for that. It'll be up soon. And I think that about covers it. Be sure to find us on YouTube, Twitter, or Facebook.
Yeah, that one.
Yes, sir.
And you can find all of that at our website as well, which is carmenline.film.
carmenline.film.
All right, guys. Thank you once again, and until next time, I'm Kenny.
I am D.
And I'm Taylor.
And we will see you at the Talkies. Oh!
Just threw your can at me, man.
Sorry, D. I apologize.
Are you still mad about Star Wars?
Yes.
You ought to be in pictures. You're wonderful to see. You ought to be in pictures. Oh, what a hit you would be. Your voice would thrill a nation.